What is going on, guys? We are back with another video today, doing another Madden 23 ratings video, which isn't quite just the ratings, but more or less going over our options for Madden franchise teams. This isn't literally just for me, but also could be used for anyone kind of get an idea for what they want to do. There is one team on here that maybe is a little bit better than the rest, but the rest are all pretty much sort of rebuild teams. I think I have 6 on the list, so when I put up the poll, just to see maybe interest, I'll put up the poll, see what the interest is like. I'll probably put 2 in one, 2 teams that I feel are like kind of on the better side that do need a rebuild, but maybe for Madden-wise aren't the hardest to work with. But, of course, the number one, believe it or not, or the 6th option, if you will, the first option we're going to be looking at, is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the reason why I have the Pittsburgh Steelers on here is you do have a couple of aging pieces. Not a lot, but a guy like Cameron Hayward isn't going to be around that long. Is Stephon Tuitt retired? Is that what happened, right? I mean, you look at the overalls. They're actually kind of low, but the thing that makes them not my biggest target is, of course, you have guys like TJ Watt. You have guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, but more importantly, the most fun positions to upgrade, they're set on. You don't need a running back. You don't need a wide receiver. You have 3 wide receivers that are already good to go with Pickens, Deontay Johnson, of course, Claypool. Linebacker, you have Miles Jack. Not the greatest overall. Of course, Pat Freiermuth, he's a fan favorite, yet he's pretty slow and not great in the game. So it's like a double whammy. You're getting a guy that's not great, but you can't really replace him because people are going to be really mad with you. But it is a team that is worth noting because, honestly, at this point in the Madden world, there's not a whole lot of tough teams to rebuild anymore. Almost every team seems to have at least a good quarterback or a very developable one. And honestly, this is a team that is near the bottom of the list for quarterbacks because of how dirty they did Kenny Pickett. Of course, it's going to take a little while to get to him, but you guys probably already know by now that Kenny Pickett is a 68 overall with only 86 throw power. And, of course, I think he's coming into the game at least 23, maybe 24. Of course, I just try to click the speed there. But, the other problem, though, is you look around here, you have, Claypool, like we said, Daniels, don't need to replace. Terrell, don't need to replace. Devin Bush, don't need to replace, even though I kind of want to. Highsmith might not need to replace. If I were to kind of think off the top of my head what you need for the Steelers, you possibly need QB. You probably need like 2-ish, maybe 3 linemen. Could use a tight end. The rest of the offense is done. You look at defense, you maybe need a D-end, a DT or 2. Well, technically, 2 D-ends because Cameron Hayward, and maybe a DT wouldn't hurt. Maybe an edge defender, a corner or 2, and that's it. Which, I know I listed a bunch of things there, but as far as like the grand scheme goes, that may only be like 2 seasons away. I know they're an option, I think, because the quarterback situation is very interesting here. And once again, you do have a, kind of a lower overall team here compared to what we maybe would think of. And another big facet, or the big idea, is that it's a very tough and competitive division where right now, at least in Madden, if you're simming, it wouldn't surprise me to see them be the 4th place team just straight up base rosters at launch. And now for a different team, the Falcons. Of course, a team that we have actually already done in the past, but a completely different look, as this team is nowhere near as dominant as that team that we did back in, I think, Madden 17? Madden 17 or 18, I believe. That Falcons team was way better. They had 2 great running backs. Matt Ryan was decent. They had wide receivers. They had a lot going for themselves. But here, sure, they have A.J. Terrell, Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, and whatnot. But the problem for me is, this is more of like a talking myself out of it type of situation, is just like the Steelers, they have too many skill positions that are solved. Tight end, quite possibly the best in the entire game. Calvin Ridley, once he plays, which, I mean, if I was doing a franchise, if he's actually going to have that ban held up, I'm probably not going to play him, maybe even trade him off, because it's more realistic that, it's kind of like, do we even want him anymore? Of course, you also have the wide receiver Drake London. Rashaan Evans joined the team. But I will say, you have a lot to develop on defense. Another hope of mine would be that Desmond Ridder would be a normal development trait, but once again, he's very developable, super fast, 91 throw power, but he is fun. So if I didn't have Kyle Pitts on this team, I'd be all about it. Kyle Pitts just makes it really, really tough for me to choose them because I just know how brokenly good he is. Of course, O-line, you need some help. Jake Matthews is expensive and kind of old. Deion Jones being an 82 overall is probably the lowest he's been since his rookie year. But this is a team that's definitely up there for me. You've got some pieces, but there is a lot still left to go. You still need a corner or two. You could still use some safeties. Another wide receiver wouldn't hurt. Quarterback, we'll see, but probably fine there. A bunch of O-linemen, a bunch of D-linemen. Linebacker maybe wouldn't hurt. So, there's a lot to work with here. I would say this is why it's my 5th place team, because once again, it is a team that obviously has some pieces, but needs more than has. Then the next team, the Seattle Seahawks, a team that, once again, just like the previous two, the only reason why I'm not more in on them is because of their skill positions. Tyler Lockett, I know he's getting older. He's a 90 overall. DK Metcalf, 89 overall. May be the best wide receiver in the entire game of Madden. Then you add Noah Fant. He's a freak athlete. Very OP at tight end. Jamal Adams is nice. Jordan Brooks is nice. Everything else, though, I could see is a problem. You also do have Kenneth Walker, though, who is extremely good. He was actually on my list of overpowered rookies because he has 93 speed, 94 excel, great change of direction, great carrying, great trucking. He's got the full package, so you don't need a running back. You don't need a wide receiver. You don't need a tight end. You need a quarterback. You can need some O-linemen, but you're probably going to have a superstar lineman as well. At tackle, defensively, you need some pieces. There are developing guys that you can use, like Boye Mafe and Tariq Woolen, who have great athletic ratings, but they will need to develop. But once again, does that overwhelm the power of having so many open receivers with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Fant? I don't know. Once again, you absolutely need a brand new quarterback. You're not going to be able to rock Drew Lock forever unless you're crazy. They also have Bo Melton, who's fast. I like to create storylines with receivers and skill position guys. And outside of quarterback, I don't know if you're getting that with the Seahawks. So they're there. They're slightly ahead of the Falcons because they need a brand new QB. But, you can almost argue that they're just right there with the Falcons. Then you have Jacksonville. Now, this is a team that would be kind of off the board if Trevor Lawrence is still a superstar, as I think star is still really good for a young quarterback, but superstar is literally developed. It's settled. You don't need to worry about anything. But if he's not, the Jaguars could still be a potential option. They do have a lot of really good names, but there's more question marks in those skill position players. James Robinson is a guy that, he's really slow. He's a good trucking back, but you'd probably be more working for ETN. Tight end, Evan Ingram isn't a guy that you need to keep long-term. He's on the older side for a development guy, so you may still need to replace that position. He is very fast, though. Wide receiver, though, like we said, is a position they need a lot at. Maybe you put ETN there. Then you have a need for running back, so you can make your own storyline there. Once again, I'm not a huge fan of quarterbacks that are already there and developed and you're ready to go. So this is a team that I think needs a little bit more than the other ones at the more fun positions, like we said, like wide receiver, maybe running back if you put ETN at wide receiver. But Trayvon Walker you have here. You have a couple of young defenders that are kind of cornerstone pieces, but there is a lot of need here. The depth isn't great. So it's a team that's okay. But honestly, now that I think about it, I'd probably rather be the Seahawks than Jacksonville. I think just because of, once again, the quarterback spot. And then with the next two, they are obviously my top two at the moment, with the number one, you've maybe seen on Twitter a couple of times, I mentioned it, number one being by far the number one. The problem is, your boy's not that big in the Madden community, all right? Maybe some, I'm recognized by some people. Maybe a lot of people have kind of an idea. They're like, oh yeah, I've heard that name before, but they haven't watched me perhaps. I don't got that kind of pull, all right? If I put up a series with the same team that some other guy, other YouTuber has, I'm dead, all right? I'm dead in the water. But before we get to that number one team, we're going to get to the number two, which was a team that was very high for me last year, but their offensive weapons were a little too OP. But ever since last year, they have taken a hit, and that is the New York Giants. Of course, they still have some decent players. Saquon Barkley is injury prone, and he doesn't have superstar or X Factor anymore, but he's still a very good running back, obviously. 92 speed, 93 excel, their highest rated player. Decent trucking, great juke move, change of direction's good. But once again, that injury, it's an 81. I mean, you could have some injuries. The storyline, not even by choice, but maybe forced to move on from him. Leonard Williams is all right, but he's on the older side. Adoree Jackson, he's a lower overall. I thought he would be a little bit higher in the game, to be honest, but 82 overall is pretty low. Sterling Shepard, he's too old to develop long-term. Kenny Golladay, he's burning a hole in the team's pocket despite being a very low overall here. Graham Gano, great kicker, who gives a damn. Slow safety, Dexter Lawrence is good, but he's only a 79. Kadarius Toney, he's a gadget player who could be fun, still needs to develop. Blake Martinez needs to be replaced. Darius Slayton could develop, but only a 77. Evan Neal, great player, cornerstone player, same with Andrew Thomas, but in between, lots of issues. Julian Love, potential because he's decently athletic, but not guaranteed to stay. Obviously not Glowinski or Richie James. Azeez Ojulari will be one of your edge rushers. So edge is set, obviously, with Azeez and Thibodeau. But corner, you need somebody. Safety wouldn't hurt. The whole interior of the line, maybe every wide receiver but Kadarius. Tight end, quarterback, potentially. Running back if injury is too much of a problem. The only problem I have is that I'm using the Nighthawks franchise, which is on the Giants basis, so we've seen the names Eagles and Cowboys a lot, but the Commanders would be a fresh face, and of course, that is a fantasy franchise, so the teams wouldn't be the same as they are in real life, obviously, but this is a team that, in my opinion, has jumped way more since last year, because of course, the ratings and most likely devs have dropped tremendously. Now, I'm not sure, but this is for an honorable mention. The New England Patriots, they're an aging team that spent a lot of money in free agency that kind of ties you up for a bit and doesn't really allow you to spend in free agency, and of course, you're stuck with what you've got. Problem is, the O-line's developed. Mac Jones, even though he's bad throw power, is a franchise-looking quarterback. They're up there. There may be a thought. If I see a bunch of people commenting the Patriots, maybe we put them in the poll, in a separate poll or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of needs there as well. Like, tight end's fine. You can't really do anything about it. Wide receiver, you have Tyquan Thornton. Everyone else, though, is awful. Running back, Damian Harris is actually really solid in the game, though. Once again, you're stuck with the quarterback. I mean, there's a lot to work for, specifically receiving talent, which is pretty damn fun. But once again, you do have a lot of settled positions as well. Corners a need. So, I mean, it's a team that definitely has a potential to be a rebuild team as well. I also thought about the Bears and the Jets. I don't know. We've done a Bears franchise a little more recently, I believe, than that Falcons. And, of course, I mean, you still have Justin Fields anyways. He's super fast, so it's kind of like, I guess maybe they're a decent developing team, actually. But they are, pretty big franchise. A lot of people like them, so we'll see. Never off the books. And then the Jets I was thinking about, which I've thought about for a couple of Maddens now. I think have just had such a good draft. Like I said, I don't know what their actual devs are going to be, but I think I gave them 5 or 6 hidden devs when I was redoing the devs for rookie videos. And it wouldn't surprise me to see that being pretty close to the facts in the next game based on some of the ratings we've seen. So probably not them. Probably not them, especially with the running back set, quarterback set, wide receiver set. It's a lot of positions set there. Corner even at this point. Like, they're a very good Madden team. They're giving me Panthers vibes, but with an actual quarterback, to be honest. But the number one, as you may have already known by now because they haven't been mentioned, and they're so obvious, the Houston Texans, a team that just needs so much. They have left tackle. The wide receiver's getting older, but Cooks is pretty solid. Speed's lacked a little bit, and then you see the overalls just tank so hard. You need to replace Steven Nelson. You need to replace King. You need to replace Hughes, obviously. The fullback, it's a fullback. Derek Stingley is a cornerstone piece, of course. Greenard, young enough, but not very athletic. I can't imagine him being much more than a role player, even though he may have to start a little bit. Punter, who cares? One middle linebacker, Kirksey, is literally about to retire. Marlon Mack, he's like backup running back. Old, not great. Old for Madden. Petrie's a good player. Mechie is decent, but he's not that athletically gifted, so he's not OP. The center's old. Cornerback's not great. Old, not great. Decent, slow. it is a team that just has so much to work on, which is why, I mean, if it was my world alone and I was the only one that can make Madden content, the video doesn't exist. I'm talking about, hey, I'm the Texans. That's my franchise for next Madden. But once again, I know how it works. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that wouldn't, it's crazy because there's people, there's content creators that don't even know yet. And then they'll end up picking someone like the Texans last second. And they wouldn't even care anyways whether they gave people, acknowledgement. They're like, hey, by the way, this is my team. They wouldn't even say it. They would just do it at the end. They get the views anyways. So I just wouldn't want to do that. Like, thankfully, there are bigger content creators that do, hey, this is my team. I'm not going to, pull out the team literally last second. Some people start the mid-Madden franchise, even though, mid-Madden start. Even though there's other people that have already started those series. It thankfully hasn't happened to me, but I've seen a few happen already in the Madden community. I get it. You can't look at every single content creator, but it's really easy to see when someone else is posting, content, right? Like, it's like, hey, wow, let me just start this team that, there's, it takes a quick Google, I'm getting off track. Drop the names. But, of course, it's not something that I want to get involved in. I don't want to be fighting for views with another person with the same franchise team. I'll just choose someone else. I'll make it interesting. I don't care. But, of course, I think it's so clear-cut obvious that the Texans are the number one team to rebuild. Last year was Madden. Madden. It was the Lions, no doubt. This year it is no doubt the Texans, without a doubt. I mean, there's not even anyone close to as, needy as they are at this point. Like, their only leverage, the only thing that made them halfway decent in previous games was Deshaun Watson. That is gone. Not a bad decision, but as far as Madden goes, it now makes them easily the worst roster in the game. And if I have it my way, this will be my team. But that's not really how it goes, does it? It's unfortunately. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And assuming I don't forget to put the poll up because I'm like an idiot or something, maybe vote on the poll. Of course, if you want Texans, still vote on that because maybe I'll do another poll where it's like Texans are out because, once again, it could be literally multiple creators doing the Texans because that is how obvious they are. I'm hoping maybe the Commanders bait some people in because they're a brand new team with brand new uniforms, but I think when the Washington football team came out, I was like the first one to make that, so maybe that's not something that's going to happen. We'll see. But anyways, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed, maybe leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you gave any ideas for your franchise, or if you have any ideas for me, a team that I didn't list, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's actually a pretty good idea, or a storyline franchise we can do where it's like we choose to be the Colts, but Jonathan Taylor decides to stop playing football or something, which, I don't know, whatever it may be, something like that along those lines. Let me know in the comment section below. And that's pretty much going to be it. I can't tell if I'm going to do a rebuild later today or Nighthawks, but it'll likely be something else later today unless this pops off for whatever dumb reason. Some people are like, oh, he's calling out other content creators. Get Keemstar on the phone. It's like, I get it. Like, sometimes people don't even do it intentionally. It may just be, hey, the guy's got a couple of million subs or something like that, and then, they just post something thinking it's harmless because, they forgot to look it up, or they don't think the person has a bunch of views, whatever it is. And it's like, oh no, there's not that many Madden creators with million subs. Let's check it. It's like, I just use that as an example. And I'm not going to drop any names. And once again, it's not that big of a deal. But like I said, it would be great to be the Texans. Regardless, though, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys come back for the next video. But until next video, see ya.